65, the insurance, you'll find that the insurance companies are absolutely inundating you with what you think is information, but in truth is propaganda. It's advertising. I know you'll notice that when you come to the world of Medicare, it seems as though everyone is smiling and happy. So keep that in mind as you come to Medicare. But what you want to know is in this world of confusion, there are people that can help. And that's what we do. We're brokers. We represent virtually all of the insurance companies that support Medicare. Because what you want to know is Medicare is an excellent program. It's phenomenal, but it's not complete. And what you'll find is your friends and family who love you will be giving you suggestions, and they know exactly what they've done is exactly the right thing for you to do. And I tell you, 99 times out of 100, they're not even sure of what they've done, much less to give you direction. And this is not a good time for you to listen to the people next door, or the guy at work, or your brother-in-law who knows everything, because what you're going to find in this world is what Mark Twain said. It isn't what you don't know. It's what you know for sure that ain't true. And that's what we find in this world. A lot of times people are taking suggestions and leads from people who don't fully understand the world of Medicare. What we do is we focus on education. That's why we're doing this here tonight. We do multiple libraries throughout the Chicagoland area and numerous Zoom meetings, trying to educate people, help them to make smart decisions. Because this world of Medicare is confusing. And I get that. Most people come to Medicare off of their employer plan. And their employer plan was a beautiful thing, but understand that employer plan that you had, they brought it to you once a year and said, here it is, take it or leave it. Well, now you come to a world where all of a sudden your mailbox is filling up, phone's ringing off the hook, all of your friends and family want to tell you what to do, but now you've discovered what went into your employer plan. You've got to make those decisions. In the boardroom, they decided about deductible and co-insurance and co-payments and network and drug plan and wellness plan and all of these things. And they brought it to you in a one-size-fits-most type of format. What we have in Medicare is the ability to totally customize a program for your specific needs. Medicare has many changes when you come to the world of Medicare. You almost got to check what you learned in your first 65 years at the door. And one of the things Medicare does is it treats everyone, not as a married couple or a family, but individually. And this is really good news because we can customize a program for mom that could be totally different than the program we customize for dad. The key to Medicare is understanding how it works. And that's what we want to do tonight. Find you've got a new best friend in the world. It's Medicare, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. They are big on education. They're big on knowledge. They're big on offering you the opportunity to learn about what your options are, but they don't force you to. This is on you. And if you don't take advantage of the opportunity, shame on you, because you'll wind up spending way too much money down the road. Won't know it at first, because Medicare is the kind of thing where you make some decisions and you throw it in a drawer and you never look at it again. And you'll find further down the road as you're dragged to the table because your premiums keep going up. And you're forced to, usually we run into people at 75, even into their 80s, that for the first time since they turned 65, you take a hard look at the decisions they made 10 or 15 years ago, only to find out that maybe they didn't make fully informed decisions. This book would help you. This is from the federal government called Medicare and You. It comes out every year. If you're already on Medicare, you've probably already received your 2023. I know they've been hidden in the last couple of weeks. But this is a great example of how Medicare gives you educational material that you should leaf through. You should understand. The Bible of my industry, it does two things incredibly well. It's chock full of knowledge, and it's a tremendous sleeping aid. It'll knock you down pretty fast if you're just trying to leaf through it. And you'll find that what you need to know is in there, but it's very vanilla in the way it answers questions. They don't take a definitive stance. What you're looking for when you come to Medicare, it's black or white, not maybe, sort of, kind of, could be in certain situations. Definitive answers. This book will give you an overview, but you could also call the support line 1-800-Medicare. Phenomenal. These are federal employees. They're not sales agents. What they're doing is answering your specific questions about your situation. And always tell good customer service, they give you their first name and their last name. And if they tell you they're going to call you back, they'll call you back. But also be aware, we're now entering into what my wife and I jokingly refer to as the most wonderful time of the year. It's Medicare open enrollment. From October 15th to December 7th, it is game on. If you've watched any TV in the last week and a half, you've noticed all the commercials about Medicare. You've probably received a lot of mail, even though you're past 65 and you've made your decisions. Leave me alone, don't bug me. No, because they know you're over 65 and they send you mail that sounds very threatening. Your coverage is in jeopardy. Your coverage may be ending. There have been big changes to Medicare. Well, let's get that off the table immediately. There have been no big changes to Medicare. What they're doing is trying to hook you into calling their 800 number and talking to one of their shyster salespeople over the phone who's going to try to spin you up in fear and move your coverage, which probably is not your best course of action. We meet with people 7 days a week at this time of the year, trying to make sure, are they in the right program? Do they have the right drug program? Do they have the right supplement? Or maybe these commercials on TV that are promising you the sun and the moon and the stars, those are called Advantage programs. And you can tell the hook, dental, vision, hearing, and more, all to get all the benefits you're entitled to. Then you see an 800 number, and below the 800 number, you see about 19 lines that you can't even read because it's so small on the TV screen. That's saying they're not affiliated with Medicare. You're calling a sales agency, and they're going to start to call you back pretty frequently. You might want to stay away from that. This book and the 1-800 Medicare number, the 1-800 Medicare number, those guys are there 24 hours a day at this point to answer your questions. They can run your drug analysis. They can talk to you about what your coverage is. We certainly can too. The book and the 800 number backed up by a great website. This is Medicare.gov. Please note the difference. G-O-V. When you go and you Google Medicare, you get a billion hits from a billion companies that have Medicare in the name. Stay away from those. Those are sales sites. Medicare.gov is the federal government, and they give us all sorts of information and great help to be able to make fully informed decisions as we age. I don't know how they let Medicare.com come to market. That's a sales site. Medicare.gov is the federal government, G-O-V. We use this Find Health and Drug programs almost this time of year. We use it 100 times a day. This allows us to go in and look at your prescription drugs and find the best drug program for you for the next year. In the world of Medicare, you get a do-over every year with your drug program from October 15th to December 7th. You have the right to analyze what you have and see if there's a better option for next year. Very possibly there is. But what you've got to do is to be able to look at the full field of play and understand that Medicare loves competition. Medicare fosters capitalism and keeps all these guys on a very level field of play. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But if you're not checking your drug program at least every couple of years, you're probably spending more than you need to. Medicare, pretty simply, it's the government health insurance program for folks over 65. As long as you've worked 40 quarters or your spouse has worked 40 quarters, you would qualify for this wonderful benefit. Medicare is different from Social Security. The umbrella for both is the Social Security Department. So you'll find that there's no Medicare offices, but there's Social Security offices all over the place. But these are two different benefits. Social Security, if you fire up that cash benefit, that's one option. Medicare is a separate entity into itself where this is the medical option. Two different. You don't have to have both to do one or the other. Social Security is where they give you back less than you ever gave them. Medicare is the medical benefit. You can qualify at 65. Many people hold off. We'll talk about that in a second. But you can also get to Medicare under 65. You've been declared medically disabled for 24 months, or you have some sort of malady, end-stage renal disease, Lou Gehrig's disease. There's any number of things that could allow you to activate this Medicare early, before 65. That represents unique challenges in my world of insurance, and we'll talk about that a little bit further down the road. But the takeaway from this slide is down here at the bottom. Original Medicare was never designed to cover 100%. Phenomenal program. A and B are going to form the foundation. A and B really good. That's from the federal government, but it's not complete. There are gaps in your coverage and things that original Medicare doesn't cover. We need to understand what A and B do to even be able to understand what we need to make it complete. A and B is from the federal government. All the other stuff, that's what we do. This is where your journey begins. And if you looked at your mom and dad's Medicare card, you probably notice they started at the first day of the month in which they turned 65. Remember, if you've worked 40 quarters or your spouse has, you're entitled to start it on day one of the month in which you turned 65. You were born on the 23rd, it doesn't matter. You go effective on the first day of the month that you turned 65, but maybe not. A lot of baby boomers have decided that they don't want to go to Medicare right away. They're not ready to retire at 65 like their parents did. They like the job, they like the finances, they like the benefits. And one of those benefits is coverage, insurance coverage through their employer. And this is a pothole. We see people make mistakes on this all the time because your friends and family, again, will be berating you. But when you turn 65, you must activate Medicare or there's going to be a world of hurt falling down upon you. And that could be true. It's a partial sentence. It's a half truth. The fact of the matter is if you keep working and where you work, there's more than 20 people that work there, that's called creditable coverage. And creditable coverage would allow you to delay activating your Medicare. For most of us, Part A can't hurt. A has no premium, but B does have a premium. And we see far too many people that fully activate Medicare, keep working, or stay on their spouse's covered. And this is creditable coverage. And only finding out years later, they never needed to pay that Part B premium. They didn't need to activate Medicare because their primary coverage through employment was in primary position. The supplement, they were paying money for something that they were frankly never going to use. We see this happen far too often. We're always telling people be ahead of the curve. As you approach Medicare, people always want to know when should we meet? I always tell people we should meet whenever you feel your blood pressure going up, because this is something that people concern themselves with, and they should. We do these library seminars. We did one last night in Arlington Heights. We had 73 people show up to learn about Medicare. I would say a third of that group was clearly under 65, but they wanted to understand how Medicare works to make fully informed decisions. A and B form the foundation. What you'd find is that you couldn't even sign up for that Part B more than 3 months out from your 65th birthday. You decide to wait. If you've got creditable coverage, you could delay activating this, and further down the road, you can turn this on without penalty or delay because you've reserved your spot at the table because of your creditable coverage. Let's make sure you're not paying for something you don't need, because this Medicare Part B thing, you pay a premium for it. The base premium this year was $170.10. I bring you good news tonight. That premium is going down for next year. Hard to fathom anything that's been going down lately, except for maybe the stock market. But the base premium next year will be $164.90. But understand this Medicare thing is very expensive, and the government is looking for ways to generate more money to make this Medicare thing float. And this here is called IRMA. This is your income-related monthly adjustment amount. Be aware that the more you make, the more the government is going to take. And everything in the world of Medicare is individual. So if you're a married couple and you made more than $194,000, you're going to see that they start charging you more for the Part B. They also charge you more for the drug program as well. Nowhere near as usurious. But what's going on here is the government, this is called IRMA, your income-related monthly adjustment amount. IRMA is based on MAGI, your modified adjusted gross income. We love our acronyms, but they're tied to their computers, and their computers are always a step behind, meaning in 2023, they will only have visual on the taxes that you filed, your paperwork that you filed in 2022. What you filed in 2022 actually reports what you made in 2021. So they're always on a 2-year look back. They're always a step behind because they're tied to their computers. Baby boomers are making financial decisions at 63, 64, 65, and beyond that could have a sonic boom effect. We've worked with many people. We've never made this kind of money before in our life. Why are they charging us more? Well, I don't know. Did you sell some stocks at a profit? Did you transfer money out of your 401k? These are taxable events. Nobody thinks of them as such. It was my money. I just took my money out. No, but when you put it in, you didn't pay taxes on it. When you take it out, you do. A lot of baby boomers have been doing Roth transitions where they take money out of their 401k and they put it in this tax-free event. That's going to be great in retirement. Yeah, but the money you took out of the 401k to put into the Roth, that was a taxable event, and it can push people up into higher brackets. I love my government. I just don't want to give them one more nickel and they're already taking. This will always be a 2-year look back, and you do have the right to appeal IRMA. You can say to the government, wait a second, I know you're looking at 2021, and I did great in 2021, and I killed it in 2022. But now it's 2023, and the government will allow you to appeal these higher amounts based on certain life-changing events. One of the most common life-changing events is you've retired. You're not making that kind of money anymore, and you have the right to say to the government, hang on a second, I want to file an appeal, and I want you to judge my amount that I pay for Part B based upon the reality of what I'm making today, not based upon the ancient history that you're looking at. And we can file an appeal that's done through the Social Security office. We've had very good success with people driving down their premiums based upon life-changing event of retirement. Now, be careful, your 401k withdrawal, that was not a life-changing event. You choose to do that. So be careful in your retirement years. You sort of become master of your own domain. You want to make sure that the withdrawals that you're taking, the stocks that you're selling, the things that you do don't have a sonic boom effect. We had a couple in here a couple of weeks ago. They took money out of their 401k to help their daughter buy a condo. Very nice. The problem was they did not realize these brackets existed, and they took out about $5,000 too much. If they just kept it a little bit less, they wouldn't have breached over this threshold. They will both be paying $65.90 a month more and $12.20 more on each of them based upon the fact that they took out this money and went over these brackets, these thresholds. Be careful, be forewarned. There's 4 different parts to Medicare. A and B are going to form the foundation. A and B from the federal government is going to form the basis of our coverage going forward. Good, but not complete. Once you've got A and B in place, you'd certainly want to get a drug program. It would be foolish not to take a drug program, because if you don't take that and you don't have creditable coverage, there can be a penalty that accrues through the years waiting for you to decide to get a drug program. You might also consider one of these Medicare Advantage programs known as Medicare Part C. We call them Medicare replacement plans. They literally replace original Medicare. Locally here, we've got a medical group that's jumped all over the Advantage bandwagon, and you see Joe Namath and Jimmy J.J. Walker and William Shatner hawking these things on TV. But let's be clear, Advantage is different than original Medicare in many ways, some good, some not so good, but we'll talk about that here tonight as well. What we do in our presentations is we usually pass this out. This is what I call the Medicare roadmap. And what I like about this is it's simple. A and B are going to form the foundation of your new world of insurance. Good, but not complete. Once we've got A and B in place, we then start to understand, once we tear this apart, we'll do that in a second. Well, I may need some additional coverage, and that additional coverage can take 2 different pathways. One pathway called original Medicare, one pathway called Medicare Advantage. 2 different ways to handle your health care as you move forward. On this pathway, original Medicare, what we like about that is with Medicare moving into primary position, we have the largest network of doctors and hospitals we could possibly have. Any doctor, any hospital that takes Medicare, you're in. Now, there's going to be deductibles and coinsurance. How do we address that? With a supplement and a drug program. And these 3 pieces, totally customizable to your needs. We have the ability to choose between 24 drug programs and 40 companies offering supplements and put together a customizable package. Or possibly you consider the world of Medicare Advantage. The idea on Advantage is you're combining co-payments and network restrictions to drive down premiums. And that's what Advantage does. It has you paying for everything as you go. Not a bad thing, But let's understand those ads on TV, they are ads. They're only touching on the highlights, and they're not getting to page 7 and 8 on the details of those benefits to understand specifically what's going on here. That's what we do here at our office in Lisle, is to make sure we're making fully informed decisions. Daisy, before we dig into A and B, you got anybody that's got any questions for us? Because otherwise we're going to move on. We got a lot here to cover. Can they raise their hands?
Yes, if you do have any questions, go ahead and either raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask the question. If not, we will go ahead and continue.
Yeah, please. I think Larry's got one. I see a raised hand, but I think you got to unmute him. Larry Byer.
And I'm an Illinois ship counselor.
Yes, sir.
I've been a ship counselor for 11 years, helping people navigate all the things you're talking about.
Thank you for what you do.
And I just want to give the 800 number for the Illinois Ship Department, if that's okay, because not everybody can avail themselves of your service.
Please do.
It's 1-800-252-8966. And you can call them, tell them where you live, and they'll be able to get you in touch with a ship counselor in the whatever part of Illinois you live in.
Yeah.
The state and federal trained. We don't sell anything. We just advise people and help people sign up for what they need.
Yep. I think you've been to a couple of our seminars, haven't you, Larry? You look familiar.
Do you ever do anything in the Highland Park Deerfield area?
We get up into Deerfield. We've got about 25 libraries that we speak at regularly, and we praise the ship counselors. If you folks don't know them, these are volunteers who will help you make fully informed decisions. And it can certainly be your wingman along with that 1-800-Medicare, Medicare.gov. I think what you'll see here tonight, Larry, I ain't selling nothing either. What I'm doing is educating and hopefully helping people to make fully informed decisions just as you do. The difference is I do make a living selling those products, but I think that's what insurance is.
Right.
Okay? Cool. Any other questions? Then let's move on. Let's understand what A and B do. A and B, very, very good, but A and B not complete. But before we make decisions on this other stuff, understand this is between you and the federal government. All this other stuff, that's where Lori and I and my team play, trying to help you make fully informed decisions on these other products. A and B good, but what are we getting for our $170 this year, $166 next year? Well, you've got Medicare Part A. And if there's one word for Medicare Part A, I want you to write down facilities, buildings. All of the buildings that you're going to come into contact with are going to come up under Medicare Part A. A is wonderful. It has no premium. Agents will tell you it's free. That's a lie. You paid a boatload in taxes when you come to Medicare. You just don't have additional premiums on the A unless you didn't work 40 quarters or your spouse didn't work 40 quarters. If the two of you didn't work 40 quarters, there is a premium on A, and that can be pretty spendy. But most people are going to qualify for A through their work. A, the dominion of A. Well, in buildings, no building could be more important than the hospital. The hospital's not free. It's got a copayment. And from the hospital, you might discharge it as skilled nursing. Skilled nursing is a wonderful benefit, but there could be a copayment there too. A will provide for medical professionals to come right to your front door and help you get you back on your feet. And then Medicare also, Part A covers hospice, and whether that was in a freestanding hospice facility or the privacy of your own home, that would come up under A. A has no premium, but remember, Medicare was never designed to cover 100%. So you'll find that A has exposure. And what does that look like? Well, here we go. Under original Medicare, there are things that you would be reaching into your pocket for. And this hospitalization, that is actually for one night next year. If you're admitted into the hospital, there's a copayment of $1,600. That $1,600 is a shocking number, but hang on a second. That's not just for one night in the hospital. That's for up to 60 nights in the hospital and continues to cover you upon discharge. So you have the unfortunate circumstance of just running with Medicare A and B, and you have a burst appendix. Well, you go into the hospital and you spend a couple of nights. The first night you owe them the $1,600. The next night you're covered because you made your initial copayment. 2 nights in the hospital, all goes well, you go home. 3 weeks later, you decide you've got nothing better to do, have a heart attack and go back into the hospital. Well, you're within your benefit window. They wouldn't charge you the $1,600 again. But at day 61, this benefit resets. So you've got to understand that you could potentially, if you timed it just wrong, you could hit that number several times in a year if all you had was original Medicare. That would never happen, but believe me, it has happened before. From the hospital, you might discharge into a skilled nursing facility, and Medicare likes skilled nursing facilities. They don't have an MRI machine on every floor. They don't have an emergency room downstairs losing money hand over fist. But this skilled nursing, there is some exposure there. Medicare will pick up the first 20 days for no charge, but the next 80 days, that could get spendy. $200 a night for those additional nights in skilled nursing. Understanding that Medicare does not pay for long-term care. That's another type of insurance, a different discussion for a different evening. But that long-term care coverage, that's not part of Medicare's world. And if you're in a skilled nursing facility for more than 100 days, you would find that then you would be stuck with the entire charge after that point in time. We talked about Medicare being a world of partial sentences and half-truths and floating asterisks. And here's one, here's an asterisk right here. What does that mean? Well, this skilled nursing benefit is a wonderful benefit, but it has a trigger. To get this skilled nursing benefit, you need to be admitted into the hospital for 3 nights. These days, there's 2 different ways that you can get into the hospital overnight. One, you're being admitted. There's a diagnosis. There's something. We're going to find it and we're going to fix it. But the other way that you can be in the hospital overnight can be with the possibility of an observational stay. Interesting. Observation means we're not really sure what's going on, but we sure feel a lot more confident with you spending the night in the hospital. This is a decision you make between you and your doctor. It's not mandatory, and it's not that Medicare doesn't cover the observational stay. They do, but it doesn't tick the 3 nights necessary to get your skilled nursing benefit. And we've seen people get burned here. We helped a woman last year, wasn't even our client, but she was clearly in the hospital for 4 nights and couldn't figure out why she was being billed for skilled nursing. Well, when you looked at the bill and you made sense of it, you found out she was actually in there 2 nights observationally and 2 nights admitted. Well, the 2-night admission did not get her the benefit of the skilled nursing being paid for. And this is a very important concept in the world of any healthcare. Anything you do, you want to have your card in hand and you want to be asking the doctor, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? What are my alternatives? And who's paying for it? We certainly don't like surprises. From the skilled nursing or hospital, you could have a home health benefit. That's wonderful. We'll send a medical professional right to your door to help you get back on your feet. But these are short-term visits based on major medical events. They're not coming over to do the dishes or mow the lawn. That's long-term care insurance. That's a different item. Here, they're coming over, maybe it's wound dressing or a handful of physical therapy visits. Their job is to get you back on your feet and out the door to seeing doctors where it's less expensive. And here we have hospice. Basically, Medicare picks up almost everything, but there can be a very small copayment for the medications that you take before you pass away. So here's A. No premium, but clearly exposure if all we had was original Medicare. We can make this go away, but let's start with what we're getting from the federal government. Let's go to B. Medicare Part B does have a premium. The base premium this year, $164.90, and that is based upon your income, so it could go higher. But if there's one word for Part B, let's put down services. All of the services that you require in the world of healthcare. A is facilities, buildings, and B is everything that goes on in those buildings. So all of the doctors that you see, all of the specialists that you see, whether you saw them in the hospital or in their office, they're billing under B. There was an anesthesiologist one time knocked you out, so a surgeon could operate on you. Wait a second, that happened in the hospital. I know, but that was the facility charge. That's the gurney and the bright lights. The people who are working on you, the labor charges are all coming up under B. All of your lab work, everything from a blood test to a biopsy, all of your diagnostic testing, we call that the expensive alphabet soup. EKG, EEG, MRI, CAT scan, X-ray, stress test, mammogram, all coming up under Part B. get out of the hospital. Maybe you need a walker or a wheelchair, or maybe in the hospital, you got a brand new knee or a pacemaker. Maybe you have a COPD machine or an insulin pump, all examples of durable medical equipment. If you've ever had a joint replacement, you would know by now that PT stands for pain and torture. No, actually, it's physical therapy, one and the same when you're trying to get that thing worked back out and stretched out and doing what you need to do to make that surgical procedure complete and effective. The ambulance that takes us to the emergency room, all of your outpatient services, and basically that's anything that didn't have you spending the night in the hospital. This could be a colonoscopy, it could be a cataract. These days, it's stunning but true. They're even doing major medical procedures on an outpatient basis. I had a client had a heart ablation. That's where they're fixing the heart. They go up in through your groin and they can surgically fix the atrial fibrillation that you might have. Or here they're doing outpatient knee replacements now. It's amazing. You get in at 6:30 in the morning and out the door you go at 4 with your brand new knee. Well, you didn't spend the night in the hospital, but there's clearly co-payments involved in that. And the last part of Medicare Part B would be clinical RX. And that's fancy talk. That's medications that are delivered in a clinical setting. That could be outpatient, that could be the hospital, could be a doctor's office. This is typically the god-awful stuff. Chemotherapy, kidney dialysis, radiation treatment. Scary, but Medicare Part B has you in that instance and they're supporting you here. And this is really important. Another place where we want to make fully informed decisions. Sometimes you have an option. There's a medication, there's a diagnosis, and there's a medication for that diagnosis. One pathway has you going to the doctor's office every few weeks and getting hooked up to an infusion. The other pathway could be as easy as walking down to your pharmacy and picking up a prescription med and taking it in the privacy of your own home. But warning, the drugs that you get through a prescription drug program are subject to this thing called the donut hole or the coverage gap. We'll talk about that more in depth here in a second, but certainly you want to be aware of the fact that sometimes there are medications that you can take in the privacy of your own home, but financially could be better taken at the doctor's office. Larry, are you going to chip in?
Yeah, one other thing, most vaccines are covered under Part B.
That's true too. And even now the Shingrix, which has been a
Starting
bane of my
January 1st.
existence, starting January 1st, Shingrix, which for most people would have hit them with at least $120 to $150 copay. Now, because of law being passed, good for us, the Shingrix vaccine for shingles, a 2-shot deal, is now going to be a 0 copay. So there's good things happening in the world of Medicare. But this Part B thing, all of these services have exposure structured differently than the Medicare Part A. A kind of has a pay-as-you-go mentality. Do this, pay that. B, on the other hand, says there would be an overall annual deductible for these services. After the deductible, there would be cost sharing. And this is very similar in structure to what you would know of in your medical program you got from your employer. Your employer program, typically there's a deductible after which you start splitting bills 80-20, 90-10, maybe 70-30. But everything you spend has a firewall in an employer plan, a stopgap. They call it the maximum out of pocket. Now, this Medicare Part D is structured similarly in there is a deductible and then there's coinsurance. And that's what this looks like. Next year, more good news for us. The annual deductible on all of these services is going down to $226. And if you can wrap your mind around that, you're a better person than I am. I'm on the Affordable Care Act. They couldn't say it if it wasn't so. And I carry a $7,000 deductible. Hard to fathom, but it's true. And they call it the Affordable Care Act. Here, all of these services, one time, you're not paying it on each of them, but your first $226 is on you. That's probably your first doctor visit. I don't think you could find a blood panel that retails for under $226, but the first $226 is on you. And then Medicare is going to step in and start splitting bills with you. They're going to pick up 80% and they're going to hold you responsible for 20%. And that's pretty darn good. But the issue here is that an unlimited benefit in the world of Medicare is wonderful, but you have to be cautious of the co-insurance is unlimited as well. In your employer plan, you'd hit a number, could be $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, but eventually the employer plan is going to say, okay, you've paid enough, we'll pick it up 100% from here. Medicare doesn't do that. Medicare says that it's an unlimited benefit, but it's got unlimited exposure. And that means gladly they will pay for 5 knee replacements. But on those 5 knee replacements, if all you have is original Medicare, every 61 days, that $1,600 will reset. You could spend longer in skilled nursing, and that could get spendy. The hospice, I hope you never need that. A $226 deductible is almost hard to comprehend. It's so little. But an unlimited 20% should grab your attention, because we all know friends and family who've been in the hospital for a relatively short period of time, and they've spent tens of thousands of dollars in bills. And with original Medicare, you'd be responsible for 20% of that bill. But no, wait, it's better than that, because once you've paid your $226 deductible, before we even get to this 80/20, understand Medicare takes their negotiated discount. You know, anybody that's been in the world of Medicare, you see the discount that Medicare takes, it's going to blow your mind. In the under 65 world, you are in a network, and in that network, you got a negotiated discount. And in the under 65 world, it wouldn't be unusual that you might even get a 30 or 35% discount on retail costs. That's why you have insurance in the first place, is to get a negotiated discount. The discount that Medicare takes would make a loan shark blush. We've seen instances where those co-payments after the deductible, we've seen the cardiologist. The cardiologist says, I'm brilliant, I charge $350. Medicare says, you're adorable, we pay $80. You'd be responsible for 20% of the $80. And literally, we've seen doctor co-payments coming in at less than $20 just based on original Medicare. That's how good it is. It's phenomenal coverage. And you might look at this and you'd say to yourself, well, gosh, you know, the open market, what are people paying in the open market? I can tell you, I'm in the Affordable Care Act. I have a Blue Cross Blue Shield Affordable Care Act program. I have a $7,000 deductible, for the privilege of which I pay $1,000 a month. And my wife pays $1,000 a month for this coverage. You might look at this Medicare and you'd say, gosh, you know, it's not perfect, but it's pretty amazing that they could do all this for $166 a month. How do they do it for $166 a month? They don't. The government is asking you for a minor contribution in the overall scheme of things. The government is spending almost $1,000 a month on every person that's in Medicare. It's a big number. They ask us for a minor contribution, but they're making up the difference with tax dollars. That's why they want to sock you with the IRMA. They want to try to find money to feed this thing. But in and of itself, understand the value of what's going on here. You're getting a tremendous value. And understand that money that the federal government is currently spending on our health care. They're asking you for a contribution, but they're picking up the lion's share. Because when we talk about Advantage and you say, wait a second, how could they do Advantage for a zero premium? It's because the government is helping to fund that aspect of healthcare. We'll get there in a little bit. We've got A and B, really good, but A and B not complete. Throw it open, Larry. Give me some commentary. I love it. I love having a wingman.
You're doing very well. I'm very impressed.
Well, thank you very much. I've done it a time or two, but you'll see what we're doing here is educating, and that's the key component. A and B really good, but A and B not complete. What are we going to do to make it complete? Well, we have 2 pathways to consider. First pathway, let's talk about original Medicare. Well, okay, A and B, there's a tectonic shift that happens on this side of the equation. You've got to think in terms of almost checking what you learned at the door, what you've learned in 65 years. We're going to shake that up a little bit. It's going to be very positive, but it is a little bit different. When you're in the under 65 world, you are driven by the network of the company that you're insured with. That could be Blue Cross or Humana or Cigna or United Healthcare, Aetna. If you're with Aetna in the under 65 market, you have been taught you've got to stay in that network. If you go out of network, you're going to get clobbered with out-of-network charges. You get your negotiated discount by staying in network. Well, now we're coming to Medicare. What's my network with Medicare? Any doctor, any hospital, anywhere in the United States, if they take Medicare, you're in. You have now entered a world where you've got the largest PPO you could possibly have. It's wonderful. Medicare is the new sheriff in town. Medicare is running the show. Medicare is nationwide. And as such, that opens the door for us to be able to buy insurance products from all over the United States. There was talk of this during the last round of elections, the ability to buy insurance across state lines. That doesn't happen in the under 65 world because the insurance in Illinois is different than the insurance in Missouri, which is different than the insurance in Florida. And now the mothership, Medicare, is running the show nationwide. They do the negotiating. They're the network that allow us to buy private insurance policies to make it complete. One of the things that we'd look at is, what are we going to do about that A and B exposure? Well, we'd look to pick up a Medicare supplement. We call them supplements because they support original Medicare. If you prefer the term, we call them Medigap plans because they fill in the gaps. You'll find frequently in the world of Medicare, we love to use two different terms just to confuse you, and it works great. But these things are brought to us by private insurance companies, and they're lining up around the block to get a grip on the baby boomers. 10,000 of them a day turning 65. It's big, big business. And currently now in Illinois, we're up to 40 different companies that want to sell you a Medicare supplement insurance program. But understand what's going on here. These guys got to play by Medicare rules. In the under 65 world, if you go to buy health insurance, Humana looks totally different than Aetna, which is different than Blue Cross, which doesn't bear any resemblance to United Healthcare. We're not doing that in the over 65 market. Now we've got Medicare running the show, and Medicare says, boys, you want to sell these things, you're going to do it by our rules. And Medicare forces all of those companies onto a level field of play. And this is what the world of Medicare supplements looks like. This column here are your base benefits. This is what you're getting from the folks at Social Security. Medicare benefits, what you pay your $166 for. Good, but not complete. Medicare allows for 10 different packages of benefits to be marketed. These 10 packages can represent different levels of coverage. People start to get a little bit weirded out. Why are there 10? Because different people have different needs. Do you want it lavish or Spartan? Do you want the penthouse or the pup tent? But understand, Medicare says what these packages represent, not the insurance companies. And for the first time in your life, you can truly compare an apple to an apple if you were to look at a package called N. N represents a grouping of benefits. We'll talk about that in a second. But Medicare says what N is, not the insurance companies. Wait a second. You're telling me that N from Blue Cross Blue Shield would be similar to N from Mutual of Omaha? No, sir, not similar, identical. Medicare says what N is, not the insurance companies. Yeah, but wait a second. I know my doctor takes Blue Cross Blue Shield. Does my doctor even take Mutual of Omaha? No, sir. Does your doctor take Medicare? Medicare's primary, tectonic shift. Medicare's running the show. Medicare does the billing. Medicare is the network. These insurance companies, okay, we got it. We got to show everybody our cards because when you're looking at N and you see that there's 40 companies that offer N, and you figured it out. It's the same coverage. It's the same network. And they must all be the same price, right? No, that's how capitalism works. We got 40 companies beating each other over the head to win your business. Capitalism works if it's kept on the rails and there's transparency. And we can see what everybody's doing in the world of N. But what you'd want to be aware of is the financial ratings of the companies you're dealing with. How long have they been around? I'm reluctant to hitch your wagon to Northwest Mutual of Arkansas when we know that they might not have the best financial rating. They probably haven't been in the market for a long time. Typically here, there's really 4 companies that we look at. The biggest ones been around for the longest times. They've proven their mettle, but understand N is N, no matter who you get it from. Medicare has 3 basic rules of engagement. Aside from playing on this field that they've developed, but on this Medicare supplement world, rule number 1, when you're activating Medicare Part B, and that could certainly be when you turn 65, but it could be when you turn 75 and roll off your creditable coverage and then activate your Part B without penalty or delay. What you find is Medicare says, okay, you're activating Part B. you get the right to go get any of these programs from any of the companies with no medical underwriting, no pre-existing conditions, no riders, no waivers. Now, that's a beautiful thing, but it's a limited window. We call it your golden ticket. You have 1 year, 6 months before you activate B, 6 months after you activate B. Go anywhere you want to go. You got to take it. It's the law, Medicare law. No pre-existing conditions, no riders, no waivers. Got it. Rule number 2, you sign up for one of these products with one of these companies. They can never drop you unless you don't pay your premiums, but it can never drop you. You're theirs and they're yours till the day you die, or we find a better alternative cover possibly down the road if you want to change things. You hold the cards. You can quit them at any time, but they can never drop you. And most importantly, what you find, third rule, they can never single you out for a rate increase. This is critically important. In the world of insurance, you have what's called a risk pool. These pools assure you of safety in numbers. That's kind of why we like the bigger companies. What you'll find is smaller companies will always offer you a better rate. They have to. They're trying to buy their way into the market. But smaller companies insuring smaller groups of people, you can never be singled out for a rate increase. You could have a terrible year. First diagnosis, dread disease, snake bite, car wreck, stroke out. But if you're in, for example, N from AARP, you would be in a pool with everyone that's got N from AARP in the Chicagoland area. All of these claims are shared among all of the enrolled. Bigger companies with bigger risk pools have more modest rate increases than smaller companies. I mean, smaller companies can be okay for a little bit, but if you're only sharing claims over a smaller group, and darn, there's that one guy that needs the lung transplant, everybody is sharing in those claims. What you find is people will get upset. I had no medical experiences at all this year, and my rates went up. Why did my rates go up? Because your neighbor went on chemotherapy, and we're all sharing in his claims. Conversely, the person that has a tragic year is terrified that they're going to see a huge spike. But with the big companies, we moderate that risk spread over numerous people. Big companies would be where I would recommend we look for coverage here. See this field of play and you see 10 different packages and you go crazy? Well, hang on a second. Let's just look at the big 3. Good cross-reference of what's going on in this field of play called Medicare supplements. The granddaddy of them all used to be F. F as in Frank. F, a package of benefits so complete that as long as you paid that premium, it would wipe out all of your exposure. It paid the hospitalization copayment, paid the skilled nursing, paid the hospice, paid the 20%, and even paid the deductible, the Part B deductible. Well, we've been doing seminars for 15 years, and I can always show to you, even through the 15 years, I would say that G was the better alternative. Why? Because G does everything F does with one exception. It asks you to pay that Part B deductible. And what you would see is through the years, F was always roughly, ballpark, many companies, but a good ballpark number, F was usually about $50 more per month than the G. Well, what that meant was if you did the math and you calmed down for just a second, look at it rationally, you were paying roughly $600 more per year for the F. And what were you getting for your $600? F was paying the Part B deductible. Well, this year that's $226. And the math has held true for years. F is for foolish. It's overpriced for what it does. And I feel vindicated because 2 years ago, they stopped marketing F to new enrollees. And what we find now is that the F pool has been shut off. If you turned 65 before January 1st of 2020, you can still get F. And I know agents that are still out there selling it, and it makes me angry because I know F is for foolish. It's not a good value. G is a better value. 1, because you're saving premiums. You picked up the deductible. But 2, what's more important, remember, we talked about the concept of risk pools. Risk pools sharing claims among all of the enrolled. Well, what's happened with F now is we've turned off the faucet and there are no longer any new enrollees. Nobody turning 65 today can get F. If you're coming off a group at 70 or 75, you may find an agent that explains to you that F is the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's the most extensive. Mr. and Mrs. Client, other people can't even get it now. You want the gold standard. I disagree because I know the F pool is no longer adding any new, young, healthy people to help you offset the spiraling cost of healthcare. And F pool is getting smaller and older and sicker and older and smaller and sicker. They can never take it away from you. You might have chosen that in years gone by. I know a lot of agents that sold a lot of F. It was easy to understand, very simplistic. And the pitch was always, well, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you want the best possible coverage. Well, define for me the best. Is it the most extensive? F is clearly the most extensive, but that also makes it the most expensive. I know how insurance companies work. The more you want them to do, they're happy to do it, but they'll charge you more. Please look at the G. Understand a deductible would drive down your premiums. Understand that from G, maybe you understand the concept of deductible, just like your automobile insurance. Your $5,000 automobile insurance deductible is far less expensive than the $1,000 because you accepted more responsibility. The truth holds the same for N, except potentially more exposure. N says not only will you pay the Part B deductible, but you'll also agree to doctor copayments. And you see them down here. Plan N has doctor copayments. $20 to see a primary, $20 to see a specialist, $50 if you go to the emergency room. That's pretty negligible expense. And what that would do is drive down your premiums because you've accepted more responsibility. Remember this, when we talk about advantage programs, the more you dig into your pocket, the more you partner up with the insurance company, the lower your premiums could go. This N has been a very, very good alternative. Understand the rules of engagement. The one thing that you want to be aware of is on N, you could be exposed to what are called excess charges. And that's where Medicare will allow a doctor. Remember the doctor that said, I charge $350? Medicare says you're adorable, we pay $80. That doctor can get his nose bent out of shape and say, I demand more. Medicare says, calm down. We'd like you to participate. And you can even bill more than the accepted rate that we've approved, but it can't be more than 15% after Medicare has taken their negotiated discount. Defend yourself. One, you can go to medicare.gov and you can see that your doctor accepts Medicare. The other thing you want to ask the doctor is, do you accept Medicare assignment? That's code. They accept assignment. It means they accept Medicare as payment in full. We've got at this point at least 1,000 people in the Chicagoland area in N. We've had no reports of excess charges, but defend yourself at all times. We said N has $20 doctor copayments. Okay, that's interesting. Look at the intersection of value for your particular situation. There's no better sleeping pill than G, pay the deductible and walk on everything else. But this N can make sense. Female turning 65, if we were looking at numbers, female turning 65, many companies want her business, but that G is probably going to be about 100, 125, good ballpark. Look at many companies. But that N is probably going to run her somewhere in the 90s. Well, that's a difference of could be as much as $30, $35 per month initially. It's $30 difference. That's $360 per year difference. Well, but that's not fair. We're not comparing an apple to an apple. G has no doctor copayments. N has doctor copayments. I agree. But with $360 in potential savings year one, divide that by $20 doctor copayments, got to be going to the doctor more than 18 times a year for N to have made a bad decision. Not saying it's everyone's cup of tea, but I'm saying it's certainly something to be analyzed among a rational assessment of your needs. These supplements even go crazy. They have one that they call high deductible. The high deductible supplement says that you're healthy, you're financially secure, you understand that higher exposure equals lower premiums. You could look at what's called high deductible G. This next year, high deductible G says that you'd pay the hospitalization if it came up, you'd pay the skilled nursing if you had to, you're going to pay the Part B deductible, you're even going to pay all of the 20% up to a firewall, a maximum out of pocket, a worst case scenario on your A and B charges of $2,700. Well, for some people, that's a terrifying number. For me, I've got a $7,000 deductible. That looks pretty tantalizing. And that's going to take that female turning 65 from about 125 to maybe somewhere in the 90s. That high deductible G could be down into the $40 to $50 range because you've accepted more responsibility. Not everyone's cup of tea, but the beauty here is that you've got the ability to assess what you need, and you have an unlimited window of opportunity in that first year to go to any company and take them for your company. But that 1 year window is very important, because that 1 year window, 6 months before you turn 65, 6 months after, eventually that's going to go away. And then what happens? People are misinformed. A little knowledge is a dangerous thing. They think during the annual election period from October 15th to December 7th, game on. I might have picked poorly. I might have chosen Northwest Arkansas Life, and now I see their rates going up by double digits. It's not a problem, because every year I can change that supplement, right? Guaranteed. No, I'm afraid that's not true. You had your 1 year window, you had your golden ticket, but eventually that's going to go away. And then what happens? We can change these supplements every month of the year. The annual election period has nothing to do with supplements. You can change those every month of the year, and all 40 companies in Illinois that want your business will gladly take an application, but 39 out of 40 would underwrite. What does that mean? That means you're no longer in your guaranteed window. Now you've got to get through medical underwriting, and it might not be so easy to qualify for another company's coverage. They can ask you medical questions, and they're not looking to buy problems. They're not looking for ingrown toenails, but if you've got a pending hip replacement or a heart issue, or maybe diabetes with a couple of medications for some sort of medical malady, not everyone will take you. But in Illinois, we have a blessing. And I know that's not a sentence that you hear frequently in conjunction with the state of Illinois, but we have a blessing. We have a Medicare supplement company that does not ask medical questions. That's crazy. A medical company that doesn't ask medical questions, isn't that crazy? Well, no, they're so big that they know they'll get the occasional lemon, but they also get so many younger 65-year-olds that they know they can offset that risk. It's a wonderful benefit for us as agents to be able to know maybe you made a mistake. At 65, you took the F because the agent told you it's the best thing going. And now you've realized the error of your ways 8 or 10 years later. It ain't $165 a month anymore. Now it's $325 on you, and it's $315 on your wife, and it's driving you to reassess the decisions that you initially made, threw in the kitchen drawer, and never looked at again. In Medicare, you've got to keep the stuff on a short leash. You want to understand that there are opportunities to move, and certainly we can rescue that 75-year-old and move him into G or even into N, depending on his medical necessities, because we have a Medicare supplement company in Illinois that does not ask medical questions. Larry, do you concur?
Yes, it's Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Hey, don't steal my thunder, for God's sakes. I'm supposed to take the credit here, but he's right. I'm not here representing any company. We basically represent all the players in the marketplace, but the company that he mentioned, one of many that we represent, is a wonderful tool to have in our toolbox. Your mom and dad at 85 are getting raked over the coals with the F. And I know, and the insurance companies know, the most terrifying word that you can hear over 65 seems to be the word change. Oh my God, that scares them. And they will justify not making any move because they're all the same. They're all the same, but they're all different. There's 40 of them. Oh, they all go up every year. That's not true. Some of the companies have actually been coming down due to capitalism and competition. I couldn't possibly qualify. I've got AFib. That's not true. We've got a company that would accept you even without medical underwriting. And mom and dad, you don't got to stay in F, maybe the G, maybe the N. When you see the discount that Medicare starts to take, it's not unusual that people even justify that high deductible. But again, a higher deductible, let me write this down again, higher out of pocket, driving down premiums. Got it. Okay, we'll remember that when we talk about Medicare Advantage. Aside from Larry, does anyone have any questions? Daisy, help me out here. Okay.
Can I
Silence.
just add one thing?
Please, sir.
Are you going to talk about Medigap Select plans?
Medigap Select would be an example of network restrictions driving down your premiums. Two ways to drive down your premiums. One way, dig deeper into your pocket. The other way is to agree to network restrictions. And these supplements, many companies will offer these supplements and keep you within a certain network of hospitals. By going to the hospitals where they've negotiated sharper rates, you can potentially drive down your premiums. Write that one down too. Higher out of pocket and network restrictions can drive down premiums. Remember that when we talk about Advantage programs. Not all companies offer Med Select on their supplements, but the company that Larry mentioned has a very compelling group of hospitals in the Chicagoland area. And if you stay keeping your scheduled surgeries at those hospitals, you can potentially drive down premiums. And remember, higher out of pocket and network restrictions driving down premiums.
I have a question.
Please.
You were talking about being admitted to the hospital as opposed to being under observation.
Yep.
Are you saying, because some friends of ours said, make sure that you get admitted if you stay overnight. Are you saying that?
Well, I'm saying you got to defend yourself at all times. My wife, who's in the other room making phone calls at this point in time, but my mother-in-law broke her ankle and got taken into the hospital. It was clearly an emergency. They needed to work surgically on the ankle. She had been there for 2 nights, and we knew enough to say, well, this is obviously, she's admitted, right? No, they had her under observational status. We had to keep her 2 extra nights to trip the 3 nights necessary to get the skilled nursing benefit. If we hadn't said anything, I would rue the day that her son-in-law that's in the Medicare industry would let her go to a skilled nursing facility, having spent 3 or 4 nights under observation. I got angry at the hospital. How could it possibly? Were you observing when you operated on her ankle? Were you observing as you rolled her back down the hallway and kept her overnight? There's no way she could have gone home. But we caught it, we fixed it. The hospital was generous enough to keep her an extra night as admitted to get to the 3 nights necessary to trip that. But yeah, you got to be careful. There's things here. And again, I'll go back to that first slide, that Mark Twain slide. It's not what you know that's trouble. It's what you're sure is correct that isn't. So you want to defend yourself at all times. Okay?
Thank you.
Gotcha. A and B good, but not complete. Pick up the supplement. Not unusual. Dad likes the N, mom likes the G. Let's at least think about keeping these supplements with the same company. Why? Because they all offer household discounts. They know what they're doing. If they get mom and dad together, that's going to be sticky business. It's tough to break them apart. So they give a household discount, and that can be beneficial. Supplement and the part A and B, good, but we still need a drug program. But again, the drug programs here are run on a showboat that Medicare has approved, not the insurance companies. We currently, this next year, will have 24 drug programs in the Chicagoland area. Why 24? Because they're all doing different stuff. You've got the opening price point this next year will be less than $5 a month. The most expensive drug program is well over $100 a month. What would be the difference? Well, this guy's in pretty good shape. This guy's a wreck, but he'd pay a higher premium to get a lower set of co-payments on a broader selection of meds. That's where the field of play is. Medicare sets the master formulary, the menu of drugs that these 24 companies can go after. Some go after generic, some go after brands, some go after a mixture. Some just do mail order, some partner only with Walgreens, but all 24 are choosing from this master formulary. But they obviously don't have to cover all the drugs. That's the variable. What are you taking? And where would you be willing to go get it? Because every one of the 24 have a strategic alliance with a pharmacy. These drug programs got to play by Medicare rules. And whether you're in a Part D drug program on a standalone basis or a Part D drug program that's built into the chassis of an Advantage program, they're all going to be there, but they're running by Medicare rules. Medicare rule number 1, you don't got to take a drug program. Don't sweat it. But if you don't take a drug program and you don't have creditable coverage, they're not going to forget about you. We will wait and time will tick by. But for every month you didn't take a drug program and didn't have creditable coverage, there's a penalty. It's negligible. This year, I want to say it's about 35 cents a month. It's not a big deal. Yeah, but the months roll by and the months roll by. And that 35 cents just keeps growing, and we're waiting for you. And we're working with a young guy now who's trying to help his mom at 90. Because it does seem like people in years gone by would pass on the drug program. And I understand why. The drug programs, when they first came out in 2006, they were expensive. These guys didn't know what trouble they were getting into. And all the drug programs were 40 or 50 bucks. But now through the years, capitalism has driven those prices down and down further. And I know Dad passed on getting a drug program 8 or 10 or 15 years ago because he was not going to pay money for a supplement on something that he wasn't even taking any meds. And any meds he was ever going to take were going to be generic. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to waste my money. And honey, you're not wasting your money either. I'm working with a woman right now, actually working with her son. She's in her 90s and she's been skating. She's actually done incredibly well. It does seem eventually down the road, the doctor has the talk with you. And in her instance, she needs to start taking this miracle blood thinner. It's called Eliquis. It's a brilliant blood thinner. It's a miracle drug. It's also about $500 a month. Well, now she figures that, well, it's $500 a month retail, but I'm going to go to GoodRx or one of these discount platforms. And they're very valuable tools. They allow us to always check the reality of these prices of these meds. But she goes to GoodRx and she finds out, oh my Lord, it's a $500 drug. And now she's confronted with the realization she needs a drug program. But that's okay. We can grab her. And during this annual election period from October 15th to December 7th, you have the ability to go get a drug program. Wide open, no medical questions, all 24 on the table. What's the best one for you? We can analyze that. But what she's going to find now is that starting in January, we can put her in a drug program and she's going to pay like $40 for that Eliquis. That's a beautiful thing. $40 for a $500 drug. And that drug program is, say, $25 a month. I agree. It's a beautiful thing. But don't forget about the late enrollment penalty. He passed on taking a drug program in 2006. And that's 16 years that we've been 35 cents 35 cents times 12 months, about $4 each year is the penalty. She's looking at 16 years of penalty. 16 times 4, that's $64. But it's not a big deal. She pays it once and she moves on, right? Wrong. The penalty is every month for the rest of her life. And I understand why Dad didn't take the drug program. It was expensive. But through the years, about 5 years ago, we broke through the $20 premium. It was a watershed event. About 5 years ago, we broke below a $15 premium on a drug program. This was earth-shattering. It was terrific. 3 years ago, we broke below $10 for a drug program. This is fabulous. And this year, we're going to be below $5. There's a drug program for less than $5 a month. Now, is the $5 drug program great for her Eliquis? No. She needs a little bit more robust coverage. But the idea of people come to Medicare, they're taking no medications, and they decide to forego the drug program. That's a mistake. The penalty is waiting for you further down the road. It's foolishness to go without a drug program, especially if it's under $5 a month. And the insurance guy is always going to say, better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So she'll be upset. She is. Because what she's looking at now is a penalty, and it wasn't her fault. It was the husband who made the decision. Unfortunately, the husband checked out about 10 years ago and has left her hanging with this penalty. But she can't be that upset, although she is, but let's rationalize it. She didn't pay premiums for a drug program for 16 years. You put that in the cookie jar, right? That money's waiting for you, right? Usually not. But the fact of the matter is she's probably still ahead of the game until she's about 105. And then at that point, she'll actually be paying some sort of a penalty. She's based on the money she saved through the year, she's still okay. All of the drug programs are available to us during this period of time, October 15th to December 7th. To not check your drug program would be foolish, just to make sure you're in the best program for the next year. All the drug programs are going to have different compilations of what they cover, right? Medicare says this is what you can cover, but then they've got to decide what they want to cover. Every drug program will have a 5-tier formulary, and this is different from your employer plan. Your employer plan typically had a 3-tier structure. It was generics, it was brands, and it was specialty. Well, here in Medicare, we break them up into 5 tiers. It forces even more specialization, even more competition, and allows us to find the sweet spot for your particular situation. Tier 1 drugs, super cheap generics, very minimal copay. That would be the workhorses that we've seen for years: amlodipine, simvastatin, metformin, lisinopril, things of that nature. Very inexpensive copayment because they're very inexpensive drugs. Tier 2, these are newer drugs, newer generics, and as might be expected, they're a little bit more expensive. They're still working their way through the food chain. Hopefully, eventually they get down here, but they're newer, so they'd have a higher copayment. Tier 3 drugs. This is where we can run into more expensive medications. I always say tier 3 drugs are drugs that are advertised on TV. Tier 4, these are drugs that are advertised on TV by famous people. So it's even more expensive because famous golfers are getting their little kickback. And these tier 5 drugs, this is where we really have to be analytical. I hope you never see a tier 5 drug. Anti-rejection drugs for transplants, AIDS medications, chemotherapy that you might take in the privacy of your own home. But things like chemotherapy, sometimes you have an alternative. You might get it delivered in the doctor's office, and if it's an infusion, it's going to bill up under Medicare Part B. It could wind up costing you far less than the convenience of cashing it at your local pharmacy. Why is that? All drug programs have stages of coverage. And what you'll find is all drug programs are developed and built and share the same chassis. I had a business professor one time who explained to me, he said, favorite expression, camel is a horse that was designed by committee. Everybody got their input. It's got 4 legs. You can ride it. You can hear it's got eyes, but it's different than the general idea. And this is true on the Medicare Part D drug programs. I bring you a program that was designed by Congress. Here we've built a carrot and a stick, and we've got stages of coverage that are trying to encourage your behavior to stay with generics. You can't always do that, but there's an incentive. Most of the drug programs have an annual deductible. This next year, that deductible is $505. My 90-year-old woman is going to go pick up her first Eliquis, and she's going to get popped for the $505. That's the annual deductible. But then take a deep breath. Whew. She met the deductible, and she moves into the initial stage of coverage. Life is good. On this drug program that she's going to get into, she's going to pay as little as $40 a month for that Eliquis. That is a godsend. She's paying $40 for a $500 drug. This is great. I know. That's why we got a drug program. That's what we're doing, is to help her pay for her medications. But understand, they're not tracking what she spends. They're tracking the full retail value of the drug. Every month she pays $40. The insurance people say, okay, but that's $500. And she pays another $40, and they say, okay, yeah, but that's $500. And in the course of this next year, she is going to receive more than $4,660 worth of drugs. That's what's driving her through these stages of coverage. If she does hit that $4,460 at $500, that's going to be about 9 months, maybe a little over 9 months, maybe a little less, depending on what else she's taking. But if she crosses over that threshold, she's going to find herself moving to this next stage of coverage called the coverage gap or the donut hole. She's still protected. Do not panic. But now she's got a higher level of responsibility. She crosses over this retail level. She's now in a new world where she's responsible for 25% of the retail value of the drugs. She's going to find this next year, August, September, she's going to go from paying $40 a throw to about $125 a throw. That's the coverage gap. That's the donut hole. That's the disincentive to taking expensive meds. I said it's the carrot and the stick. The carrot is that if all you're taking is generic drugs, it's pretty hard to envision a world of generics where you could hit that kind of retail amount. You'd have to be eating bowls of meds in the morning to get there. It could be done, but very hard to imagine generics would propel you into the coverage gap. Carrot is generics, stick is the coverage gap. You would want to take generics if they're available. What you'll find in the world of Medicare is these Part D drug programs can be a little slow at the uptake of generic drugs. Medicare is a slow-moving beast. You want to be sure to utilize all the tools in your tool chest. I don't know if you guys are hip to goodrx.com, but it's a great website. Shows us every local pharmacy and what they would charge for your prescription drugs. The best example I have this year is Cialis and Viagra have gone generic. We know that. I can go to GoodRx and I can see the price for them at Walgreens, Jewel Osco, Mariano's, any of these pharmacies that are bidding on your business. But at GoodRx, you'd find that those two meds have gone generic. You'd find on the prescription drug programs, they're still treated as a brand name expense. So where you run it through your drug program, it could easily be $100. You could get those meds using a GoodRx coupon for far less. We've seen it for as little as $11 a month. This is not something you have to do. It's your God-given right as an American citizen to pay too much for your insurance. But you should remain engaged. You should be looking at your options. And that GoodRx is a great example of a place to potentially save money. Fall into the coverage gap? Well, you're going to find that most people that fall into the coverage gap don't get out. They can get out of the coverage gap and they can get into catastrophic. And that's where you pay as little as 5% of the retail value of your drugs. But the problem is anybody that gets to catastrophic usually does not be in that stage of coverage for more than a couple of months before everything resets January 1st. Everything comes back around. We erase all of these numbers and we try it again. That's why every year from October 15th to December 7th, you've got to see this coming 8 lanes wide. And it's very easy to do. All you have to do is call 24 different drug programs, ask about 20 different formularies. No, you're not. We're going to go to Medicare.gov, and we have the ability to show you what next year looks like. We do this for our clients. You can do this at Medicare.gov. You can do it at 1-800-Medicare. Larry's going to give us his phone number again for the SHIP counselors who will do that for you and help you make fully informed decisions. You don't have to, but if you don't, it's your own fault for spending too much money. Hit me, Larry.
1-800-252-8966. And can I just say something about the Plan Finder?
Please.
The Plan Finder works most efficiently if you have a username password logon for Medicare. Because if you have that, when it'll automatically show you all the drugs that you've taken during the year, and those will be in your drug list. And then you can use that list of drugs to compare plans for the following year.
Yeah, and that's a godsend for any agent that you work with or even a SHIP counselor, because you'll have a username and password and you can spare us time. This time of year, it is crazy busy because it's a very limited window. But if we sit with our clients and they're taking 8 or 10 or 12 drugs, we can do that, but we've got to enter 8 or 10, 12 drugs. You sit down with us and you say, here's my username, here's my password, boom, we can pull up your meds and do that analysis in a couple of minutes, where if we've got to enter in all the meds, you're slowing us all down. So yeah, set up your own username and password directly at Medicare.gov. It's a great source of assistance for anyone that wants to try to help you. Even if you call the people at 1-800-Medicare, they'd be able to pull that up and help you in very short order. Got it?
But even if you don't have a username and password before, no matter when you put it in, all your drugs will be there that you've taken.
Have to be careful in my world because it'll show everything that you've been taking. And we do have to go through there and make sure. Was that
on a regular basis?
Do you still take that? So it's good information. It needs to be fine-tuned, but this is a great tool. Okay.
We do have a question from Steve, and he wants to know if we will be talking about TRICARE and it's in place of as a supplement.
Typically, we don't, because that's a very finite population. First of all, thank you for your service. TRICARE and VA benefits are a little bit different in the world of Medicare. You wouldn't want to sign up for a drug program because that would eliminate your TRICARE benefits. Many veterans don't take a Medicare drug program because they're getting their drugs through the VA, and the VA is creditable coverage. What you would find, and we'll talk a little bit when we get to Advantage programs, is with TRICARE, you've got excellent coverage, but you can also add some additional coverage that could make it even better. And that's where those Advantage programs are a sweet spot. We'll talk about that in a little bit. These drug programs, we can run a report. And as an example, here's one that we ran just the other day. This plan premium is $25 a month. This preferred pharmacy is CVS Pharmacy. Understand, you could choose exactly the right drug program and go to the wrong pharmacy, and you're going to pay too much. Don't do that. Understand the power of a preferred pharmacy. Used to be mail order was always your best option. Not so much anymore. The retailers have figured out this is an incredible way to get you into the store. In most instances now, you get better pricing going at retail. You can still get 90-day supply, but you get better pricing at the retail than you do through mail order, because these guys know when they tell you it's going to be about 10, 15 minutes for them to fill your prescription, you're going to wander the store. One of my favorites is Mariano's. Mariano's is a preferred pharmacy with almost every plan, because they know if we set you loose for 15 minutes in Mariano's, you're going to find something to buy. And they're using that to drive traffic. We see here, here it is. There's that dreaded Eliquis. The retail is $523. The annual deductible is $505. And we see that that first fill of Eliquis is going to fill the deductible. So we're going to move from before deductible to cost after deductible. And there it is. There's a $523 drug for $47. That is a beautiful thing. But they ain't measuring your 47. They're measuring your 523. And that's going to drive this person into the coverage gap in August. And in August, welcome to the coverage gap, spend $130.95. And you don't take enough medications to get out of the coverage gap. This is all what the federal government is telling you and helping you adjusting your behavior. As Ventolin is a good example. Ventolin has gone generic, but the federal government hasn't picked up on that yet. They'll get to it. Probably take them another year before they go fully generic with Cialis and Viagra or Ventolin or others. But this Ventolin, if you go to GoodRx, I believe the last price I saw was $12 a month for this. Now it's the generic. It's not Ventolin, but it's the generic of Ventolin. Why would you pay $30 when you could pay $12? This is where you utilize all the tools in your tool chest. This is where you want to make sure you're getting maximum value each and every year. You don't have to. People don't. I've heard it 1,000 times before. Oh, they're all the same. How could they be the same if there's 24 of them? Oh, they all go up every year. I can prove that that is factually incorrect. They've been coming down in premiums. Oh, well, I couldn't possibly qualify because I've got pre-existing conditions. On the drug program, game on. There is no pre-existing conditions. You're guaranteed the right to change these drug programs every year. And if you don't, that's probably a mistake. Most of the people that we meet with, if you've chosen wisely initially, you're probably just going to let that roll over to the next year. One of the big miscommunications at this point on purpose is that there have been big changes to Medicare. Your coverage is in jeopardy. Your coverage may be ending. Those are all advertisements trying to get you to call some used car salesman who's going to spin you up into a panic and try to flip the business. Usually, if you've chosen wisely initially, you'd know that A and B good, but not complete. You need a drug program and a drug and a supplement. And this is one pathway called Original Medicare. What do we like about it? Biggest network you could possibly have. We could have a supplement, but as long as you make that monthly premium payment, remember the G, a $226 deductible, after which, standing in conjunction with your Medicare, the MRI, the CAT scan, the X-ray, the iron lung, the kidney transplant covered. It's amazing covered, but that does cost you a premium. The drug program, we've got 24 of them to choose from, and it wouldn't be unusual at all that the best drug program for dad is different than the best drug program for mom, but we're going to put those together. One of the things that we see is that when mom and dad have done everything with the same company, I'm not saying that it couldn't happen, but that's a dead giveaway, typically that they worked with a captive agent, an agent that only represented one company. That's not in your vested interest. You want to look at the entire field of play. One company, very famous, only offers 2 drug programs. And the good news is, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you need the least expensive drug program. The problem is their least expensive drug program is $18 a month. And you probably don't need the $18 drug program. You could be down here at 5 or 8 or 10. What happens is if you only look at one company, you're only making one choice. We want to look at all the company. Look at your drug programs. I've got people who say, well, I only want to go to Walgreens. Okay, then we're only going to look at the 8 companies that feature Walgreens. But could you walk across the street to Jewel Osco and save several $100s a year? This is about making fully informed decisions. This is where most people are going to start. It's where mom and dad went, your friends. Most people are going to start with a prescription drug program and a supplement. They're going to make one decision. They're going to think they did okay. At least it seemed like they did. And they throw it in the drawer and they don't look at it. And time goes by. And we see this time of year, finally, people, not unusual, mid-70s, approaching 80, they go over to that drawer and they take out the policy that they initially signed up for, because dad is sitting there with a calculator and a legal pad, and he's looking at the explanations of benefits and he's looking at the premiums. And, honey, when we signed up originally, the stuff was pretty reasonable, but now here we are at 78. And between your drug program and your supplement, we're dropping $250 a month. And between my drug program and my supplement, we're dropping another $250 a month. That's $6,000 a year. And as far as I can see, we went to the doctor a total of 7 times last year. And that is a bucket of cold water. And you might actually be forced to take a look at the decisions you originally made. And we'll get a chance to sit with them through seminars like this or the libraries that we work at, or just word of mouth. People come in, we'll sit down, and we'll do what's called a needs analysis. And, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you went to the doctor a total of 7 times last year. I got to tell you, the F supplement was probably not your best choice. You're paying an awful lot of money. Basically, with the F supplement, you have the all-you-can-eat buffet. And with your utilization of the healthcare system, you're leaving after a glass of water. That doesn't make any sense at all. Maybe we could move you to the G or move you to the N, and that could save you some significant money. And we've got a company, even though I know you've got emphysema, and I know she's had a brush with cancer, there's still a company that would take you without any medical underwriting. And we can change their supplements, and that's good. Look at their drug program, and that's really sad because you haven't looked at your drug program in 8 or 10 years. Well, that's low-hanging fruit. My goodness. You took the right drug program 8 years ago because you were taking 2 tier 3 medications. You needed that $31 drug program to cover those meds. But here we are 8 years later, those two drugs have gone generic. And meanwhile, your $31 drug program is now $78 a month. You don't need a $78 drug program. You'll do just fine with the $8 drug program. And we can tune them up. And it's a great feeling. Sit with them, analyze their situation, potentially save them quite a bit of money. And it's always a good feeling, but it always seems to be mom who ruins the moment when she says, how long could we have been saving $230 a month? And you're forced as an agent to say, it's probably been about 10 years. And they get that faraway look in their eye as they realize that they've spent way more money than they needed to spend. That's unfortunate, but the idea that we can check it out and possibly tune it up and make improvements is very true and very possible. But they may be watching TV and they may see Joe Namath or Jimmy J.J. Walker or William Shatner hawking the idea that you could potentially move to a different idea, the world of Medicare Advantage. And it looks pretty impressive. Vision, hearing, all the benefits you're entitled to. They're giving away the world. Those are shiny objects alluring you to call the 800 number. Amazing to me how many people will sign up for healthcare over a phone, never having met anyone, never having actually seen the documents that are important. And in 12 minutes, they might have made a change to their healthcare that might not be the better change. Here, we have a pathway called Original Medicare. Medicare is in primary position. What we like about that is we have the largest network you could possibly have. By definition, what happens in the world of a Medicare Advantage program is the federal government is taking that money that we talked about before. They're not running Medicare on your $166. It's almost $1,000 a month, and they'll pay the majority of that to a private insurance company, and the private insurance company will step in and replace Original Medicare. A and B now get put in a drawer. You're still paying for the B. If you're paying IRMA, that bump because of income, you'll still pay that. But here, a private insurance company steps in and combines network restrictions and co-payments for services into the ability to drop your premiums down lower. A and B, the good news of A and B, it's an unlimited benefit. The scary part of A and B is it's unlimited exposure. Well, The Advantage programs are going to look at that and replace original Medicare with a package of benefits and an a la carte menu. Here, you could have the all-you-can-eat buffet. Here, we pay for everything, but only as you use it. Don't be scared, but understand the rules of engagement. Here, once you've paid your $266, for example, if you had the G supplement, and we're talking about polar opposites here, with the G supplement, pay $266 and everything's covered. On the Advantage program, no. You would have a series of co-payments. The primary care physician, maybe 5 or 10. The specialist, 25 or 30. The trip in the ambulance was $280. A night in the hospital was $300. A trip to the emergency room was $120. Physical therapy could be $40. All of the things that you would do in the world of healthcare will have an associated co-payment. That's not bad, but you need to understand it, and the commercials on TV do not help you to do that. Advantage has rules of engagement, but just like the drug programs and just like the supplements, the new sheriff in town is Medicare, and they're running this show. All the companies that want your business got to play by Medicare rules. Understand Medicare Part C, also known as Medicare Complete, also known as Medicare Advantage. We call them in the industry, these are Medicare replacement plans, because quite literally, you have to be enrolled in A and B. That never goes away. You got to pay your B premium. That never goes away. But it's a private insurance company that's now going to step in and replace original Medicare. These are available on a county by county basis. That means the program that you have in DuPage might not be available in Grundy. The program that you have in Lake might not be available in Missouri. But each of the counties will have different programs based upon the network of doctors and hospitals that they engage in those counties. And yes, Joe Namath is right. They may include additional benefits, but boy, this is where they're selling you all the sizzle, but you want to know what is the actual coverage going to be like. The dental, the vision, the hearing, the gym club membership, those are of little solace if you need major medical events happening to you and you haven't fully comprehended what goes on with an Advantage program. Understand, in original Medicare, you're making decisions between you and your doctor. In an Advantage program, you're making decisions between you and an insurance company, and that can be a big difference. Understand that all of the Medicare Part C programs that are out there, and this year, I want to say we saw in Cook County, I believe we're up to 59 options of Advantage programs. It's insanely competitive. All of these companies throwing more benefits at you, but the ground rules remain the same. All of them will be a more restrictive network than original Medicare. Original Medicare is going to be larger than the subset of companies that offer Advantage programs. This is where, again, I would recommend you stay with big companies that you've heard of before. Medicare gives them a star rating. Be very conscious of the star rating, 1 to 5 stars. For lack of a better descriptive, let's call that consumer satisfaction, but more goes into it. Medicare keeps them on a short leash. Anything with 3 stars or less, I would stay away from, but you can make a direct comparison. These companies have to show you their scorecard that they get from Medicare. Restrictive networks, co-payments for services, but depending on the company, those co-payments will be different. But Medicare forces them to lay their benefits out in exactly the same fashion. We can sit here with 6 different companies, and every one of them has to show you the deductible, the premium, the out-of-pocket, the co-payments, the additional benefits. It becomes pretty apparent pretty quickly, depending on your needs, who has the better package of benefits. Most importantly, all of them are going to have capped exposure. That means a worst case scenario. All of those co-payments have a stopping point. It could be very minimal if you agree to maximum restrictions. If you went with an HMO, understand the rules of engagement. An HMO says you keep everything with Dooley or everything with Advocate or everything with Northwestern, and that Northwestern primary is only going to write you a referral, which you need in an HMO to get to the endo, the gastro, the dermatologist. That's how an HMO works. And yep, if they control you that much and keep you shoehorned into a single group, you could have an HMO that could literally have a 0 premium. That couple that was looking to spend potentially almost $5,000 here next year could move to an HMO and have an out-of-pocket maximum on those HMOs. It could be as little as $2,500. Well, that's pretty good. They were ready to spend 6,000. Yeah, but understand the restrictions of an HMO. You can also have them in a PPO flavor. A PPO is going to do more. It's going to allow you to cross-pollinate. You could have a doctor at Advocate, a doctor at Northwestern, a doctor over there at Dooley. And they even have now, they've become so competitive, they have zero premium PPOs. Well, how do they do that? Well, the more they do, the more they're going to charge. But you said it was a zero premium. Yes, but the more they do, they're going to make that up. The out-of-pocket goes up. The co-payments go up. The sizzling benefits go down a little bit. It's not a bad thing, but understand what your maximum out-of-pocket is. We have one of the major players, a name that we know and love, has a zero premium PPO this year. My goodness, it's impressive. And it's got $5,000 of dental, which I doubt you'd ever use, but it sure is a grabber. The out-of-pocket is $7,500. What have you done? You've exposed yourself to a potential out-of-pocket that could dwarf what you would have if you had a supplement. Not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying people make emotional decisions without being fully informed. These programs, most of them will include a Part D drug prescription program. And this is where there can be sweeteners. There can be things hidden in these Advantage drug programs that could be very beneficial. We had one of the Advantage programs 5 years ago. The Advantage program had insulins at a zero copay. That was very impressive. And we moved a lot of diabetics into that Advantage program because they were saving a fortune on their medications. Now, we want to look at all of the different programs. Understand if you're a veteran, if you have TRICARE, you wouldn't need an Advantage program with a Part D drug prescription program. And there are specific programs designed for veterans, I'd love to show you, where because they don't have the Part D, they have more sweeteners, they have more benefits on a zero premium chassis that could ride parallel with your TRICARE benefits or parallel with your VA benefits and could sweeten the package dramatically, worth looking at. And all of them, here they are. If you haven't watched any TV in the last 10 days and you don't realize the storm of advertising that's out there, and everyone is urging you to call an 800 number, urging you to come and learn about all the benefits. And yeah, one of the big things that they're hawking now is the Part B give back. Well, okay, that's true. These guys are making so much money that they can even afford to kick you back a little bit to your Part B premium. And if you're in TRICARE, that might be very, very interesting. There's some interesting things there. But what happens here is Medicare is going to protect you. If you decided you wanted to try one of these things, Medicare would give you a 1-year trial right. And we call that the test drive. If you're over here and you're going to spend $6,000 and you understand what we call the philosophy of the cookie jar, you take that $6,000 and you set it aside, because over here, you've agreed to a world of co-payments for services and network restrictions for services. But if you've got $6,000 in the kitty and you only went to the doctor 7 times next year, this might make sense. Understand that Medicare gives you a 1 year to try it. Anytime in that first year you don't like it, first of any month, we can move you back to original Medicare and return you to where you came from. Medicare gives you that attempt or that test drive to be able to be comfortable with the program. But understand the asterisk. If you come to Advantage, you've got a 1-year trial right, but after that first year, you decide you want to come back to original Medicare, now you can put A and B back into primary position. That's great. And you can go and get a drug program, guaranteed, no denying it. Great. And we can go ahead and apply for a Medicare supplement. What was that again? We can apply for a Medicare supplement. Well, applying means you could be denied, and you could be denied. In Illinois, 39 out of 40 companies are going to ask you medical questions, and if they deem you to be a bad risk, they're not going to take you. The one thing that gives me the ability to sell these programs at night and sleep with a clean conscience is I know you got a 1-year trial right. And if you want to bail out in Illinois, we've got a program, a supplement company that doesn't ask medical questions. That's not true in Florida. It's not true in many states where you go with an Advantage. After that first year, you're going to hear the door closing behind you. Be careful. Understand the rules of engagement. Please understand Advantage programs pay the highest commissions in my industry. It irks me. But I know agents that's the only thing they'll talk about. That may not be in your best interests. You want to know what the entire field of play looks like from A and B and Advantage and everything on the plate to understand what's the best thing for you. Larry, you got a word on Advantage programs?
We have a different nickname for them, but I won't go into it.
Thank you.
But I
have
will
to be-
say
I
that
have to be level here.
there have been instances where somebody was scheduled for a heart transplant. 2 weeks before his operation, his doctor said, "Oh, I'm not in that program. I'm not in that Advantage plan anymore."
Yep.
And there are some real pitfalls. The
Yeah,
Advantage, from what I understand, every Advantage plan gets a certain amount of money from the government for every client they sign up every year. And what they don't spend on advertising and medical care, they get to keep as profit.
And BMWs for the executives. I also know that these Advantage programs grow in popularity because of the low premiums. I understand that there's a local medical group that has kind of gotten heavily into Advantage. They took 34 of their primary care physicians and moved them to Advantage only. And just like Larry said, the government's paying the insurance company every month. The insurance company is now paying that medical group. And whether you show up or not, they get money every month. It's a cash infusion. It's been good for their business, but I don't know if the wallet is more important than the health care. That's a decision you have to make. But I do know on this side of the equation called Original Medicare. With Original Medicare, you're going to only see the doctor get paid when you show up. And that makes a difference for the program and for the doctor. I'm jumping around here, but on this side of the equation, they only get paid when you come in for services. On Advantage, they get paid whether you show up or not. And I said before at the beginning, here you're making decisions with your doctor. Here you're making decisions with an insurance company. And Larry's touched on it. I have to be Switzerland. I have to be neutral. I have to try to be balanced in my presentation. I'm not saying that any one side is better than the other side. I'm saying everything has its plus, everything has its minus. Your job is to figure it out, but you don't have to do it by yourself. What you want to know is there are people out there that can help you. Larry does it as a volunteer. I do it as a commissioned salesperson. There's no charge to you to meet with us. What we do is sit down. The insurance companies pay us, but I got no dog in the fight. If it's a supplement, let's look at the 40 companies. I think I can convince you where you should be placing your business, and I've got facts to back that up. If it's an Advantage program, we don't do as much Advantage program as most agents. We're about 80% Medicare, 20% Advantage. And I think the reason for that is we seem to be one of the few people in the industry. Hang on, big fella. Let's look on page 7 and page 8. Understand on the Advantage program, every one of those physical therapy visits is going to be $40. You know that, right? You never think about it, but when you get there and they start disincentivizing you to go for physical therapy, that might not be in your best interest. I'll go wherever you want to go, but I'm going to make sure we're making fully informed decisions along the way. We've got an office in Lisle. We're going 7 days a week at this point in time. Happy to sit down and review what you got, try to make sense of what the future looks like. The key here is making fully informed decisions, and you don't have to do it alone. Larry, close for me.
I've been to a lot of seminars like this, and I've got to say that you have presented the most informative and most equal opportunity for all different types of Medicare situations that I've ever heard. I
Thank you,
would
sir.
definitely, if I was in the need for insurance for Medicare, I would come to someone like you.
That it's humbling to hear it from anybody, but from somebody that's a ship counselor, I'll put that on my merit badge list. That's very cool. Thank you.
I just
very
want to
much.
say one more thing about drug plans.
Sure.
When you look in the plan finder, and there are 2 types of pharmacies, there are 3 types. There's in-network, there's preferred pharmacies, and out-of-network. In some cases, a drug can be cheaper at a network pharmacy than it would be at a preferred network pharmacy. Doesn't happen too often, but it is possible. It's something that happened to me with one of my drugs.
Well, and I would say, we've looked at this here tonight. I call it Medicare 101, and I know we threw a lot at you. And I shouldn't have had a cup of coffee, and I know I talk fast, but I'm passionate about this. But understand here tonight, we have skimmed the treetops of what Medicare is all about. We didn't go down the rabbit hole. There's so much more here to know that your ears would start to bleed if we went any further. This is a good place to stop, but understand now you know the basics. Medicare 101 is usually followed by Medicare 102, and that's where we get into the nitty-gritty of your coverage, which could be totally different than your wife's coverage, or what your brother-in-law did, or the guy at work. Everybody wants to tell you what to do. That's not the idea. You need to educate yourself. I would thank you for coming here tonight. Daisy, I would thank you for the opportunity. It looks like we got a couple of more chat questions. Daisy, are you still there to read those, or did we bore her to death?
You know what? Daisy had to step away and put her children to bed.
Eric
So
Johnson,
I'm
where's your
here.
guitar, man? Okay. Can you read the chat, Eric?
Yeah, they'd like to know they like to see your contact information again.
Oh, you're kidding, right? Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, we've got a website, we've all that good stuff. We've been around for 15 years, and Larry's compliment rings true. We don't buy internet leads, we don't advertise, we don't do these god-awful mailers. We're just here working on word of mouth. So thank you for coming here tonight, and tell a friend. What else you got, Eric?
Well, David, thank you very much for doing this presentation. I'm glad we were able to reschedule, and a lot more people were able to join us. And it sounds like it was a great discussion, and we've recorded it, so we'll send it out to everyone that attended today, and make sure that those who weren't able to attend will be able to access it as well. And David, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you. And thank all your folks for sitting in here tonight. Hopefully it was a step forward in the right direction. We all got to get our arms around the cost of healthcare, and that comes with making fully informed decisions. Eric, thank you. I appreciate it. I'll let you guys go.
All right. Have a great night, everyone.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right.